Well, on a few other notes on the NFL, mm, the biggest surprise this past weekend was the Bears losing to the 49ers. Who had the 49ers going into Chicago beating the Bears? The hot streaked Bears and Jay Cutler. However, through since Jay Cutler became a Bear, and I guess throughout Jay Cutler's entire career, he's been that kind of quarterback. He kind of gives you that impression that he's going to throw 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, lead you to the playoffs, win the Super Bowl. 1 week. Next week, draft a quarterback next year. And that's the kind of QB Jay Cutler has been for the Bears. The Bears lose in overtime to the 49ers, who are in full on rebuilding mode. And the Bears have had a legitimate shot. They still kind of do have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. However, losing at home to the 49ers just shows me that the Bears are still not ready. They're not ready to make the playoffs. They're not a top 6 seed in the NFC. And with that being said, how about them Green Bay Packers? How about that game versus the Detroit Lions? Now, if you haven't seen that play, that Hail Mary play, I suggest you go on YouTube right now and look up that play versus the Detroit Lions. That 65-yard bomb from Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers for the game-winning touchdown in Detroit. Wow, wow, one of the best endings in the NFL that I've ever seen in my life. Now, the Packers are back in first place in the NFC North, tied with Minnesota, 8-4, 8-4. But Packers have the tiebreaker with the win against Minnesota, so they have control of the NFC North, and they have the Cowboys coming up next in Lambeau. So it's gonna be a tough game. Cowboys. How about that Monday nighter? If you have the chance to watch that Monday night, Cowboys Redskins, boring game, very boring to be quite honest with you. It wasn't until the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, which things got a little interesting, and Cowboys pulled the win. Did not have the Cowboys winning versus the Redskins. Redskins were 5-0, 5-0 at home, 0-6 on the road. So at home, Kirk Cousins looking like Joe Montana in the Redskins, and he did not show up. That Cowboys defense stepped up. They did enough to score more points than the Redskins, and the NFC East, or least as many like to call it, is still wide open. Like the Eagles at 4-8 have a chance of making the playoffs. They're one game behind. So yeah, it's been an odd year in the NFL. Now, in these weekly installments, I would like to, in my own words, give you a tilt balance that's gonna tilt the a win or a loss of a team in a matchup, which could tilt the balance in the standings or whatever it may be, or in the balancing. Now, there's 2 games this coming week in the NFL that really are on the tilt. They either push you and put you as a contender to make a strong run in this a late charge in the end of the season, or you take a step back and you have a 3 must wins to possibly fight for a playoff chance. And those 2 games are, well, my first game is Buffalo versus Philadelphia. Buffalo 6-6, solid team, solid defense. They don't nothing flashy about them. LaShawn McCoy, um, playing all right. First game back in Philly versus Chip Kelly. We all know that drama that occurred with them. But this is a game that's gonna make or break a team. Philly, like I said, at 4-8, terrible record, still is one game behind the Redskins and the Giants. Now, if Philly wins, they'll tie them on the win on the win column, depending on Washington and the Giants do. But it's just we'll see. We'll see. That game is a tilt or break game for both teams. Buffalo needs the win to stay in the playoff hunt in the AFC, and Philly needs it for the division. We'll see. Second game is Minnesota at Arizona. Now, this game is more important to the Vikings than the Cardinals. And let me tell you why. Minnesota sits in the 5th seed right now in the NFC at 8-4. However, Seattle's lurking right behind them at 7-5. And that NFC, as many as would like to discuss that the AFC has gotten stronger, that NFC, that middle of the pack NFC, is still loaded with teams. Not elite quality teams, but it's still loaded. So if Minnesota loses to Arizona and goes to 8-5, assuming Seattle wins, Seattle leapfrogs them, and we have Tampa Bay at 6-6, Atlanta at 6-6, and a team in the NFC least assuming they win, at 6-7. So Minnesota will be at 8-5, but their cushion won't be as great. That's a tilt or break game for Minnesota, more for Minnesota rather than Arizona. Arizona has a stronghold on their division. Obviously, they're fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC with the Panthers. They're 2 games behind, and the Cardinals have a tougher schedule down the road. They face the Packers week 16, but another tilt or break game in the NFL next week. And my final point of discussion today was going to be the college football playoff. I know many of you aren't really interested in college football. However, just to keep you in the loop, it's going to be Clemson versus Oklahoma and Alabama versus Michigan State in the national championship semifinals. And the winner of those 2 games will face each other on January 7th for the college football national championship game. These semifinals will take place on December 31st. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not really big into college football, but I'll be watching, and we'll see how that goes. And to end this first session of practice, information, and overall production, I'm going to be at the end of each segment or of each discussion, of forum, blog, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to give a shout out to a city for a random fact of each state. So, for example, today I'm going to start with California. I'm going to pick a city in each state, 1 city per week, and I'm going to give a shout out to them. If you're listening out there, shout out to you guys, and if not, hopefully next week can be a city in your state and you get a shout out. So I'm going to start out with California. Pick a city in California, give a shout out, and that's for Fallbrook, California. Fallbrook is actually known as the avocado capital of the world and hosts an annual avocado festival. Now, more avocados are grown in that region than any other county in the nation. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Fallbrook, California, for the people that work in those avocado fields and trimming those trees. I know they're messy. Seen a few. And just a shout out to Fallbrook, California. Keep those avocados coming. Try to keep them cheap. And that'll be it for my installment of the Weekend Sports. Have a good night.